battle through the heavens, grand world. And now as, battle through the firmament, grand world. Chapter 296 Everyone's Movement. Wu Shaoqi. When Shaoyan heard this name, he silently nodded. There must be something extraordinary about someone Mu Yiyu feared. Since we have succeeded, Zuna and I will return to our place to cultivate, Kai Lin said coldly, pursing her lips. Shaoyan was stunned and was about to speak, but Kai Lin's beautiful eyes looked at him and said, the inner courtyard competition isn't just for entering the top 10 of the Soaring Dragon ranking. Zuna and I are also determined to reach the top 10. After listening to Kai Lin's words, Shaoyan could only bitterly smile and nod. The dignity of this queen had always been there, from beginning to end. On the side, Zuna made a funny face effortlessly. Okay, but before we leave, Shaoyan suddenly smiled evilly and pounced on the two girls, shocking them. In an instant, spring light filled the mountain. Wu Shaoqi came out of the illusory spirit realm. At the top of a majestic heavenly peak, the scenery was breathtaking. Clouds and mist lingered around it, making it look like a fairyland. A lady in a white dress stood atop the mountain. Her black hair danced in the breeze. Her face was as beautiful as jade, making others feel ashamed to look directly at her. Mu Yiyu's eyes flashed with purple light. After hearing the report from a female student not far away, she only smiled slightly. Her gaze was calm and deep. It is said that Lu Xiangyang went to see Wu Shaoqi last night. When he came out, his expression was complicated. Mu Yiyu chuckled softly. Lu Xiangyang has been eyeing the position of president of the punishment department for a long time. I heard the elders intend to choose between the two in this competition. With Wu Shaoqi's return from the illusory spirit realm, Lu Xiangyang naturally wanted to test her. As she spoke, Mu Yiyu looked dazzling as she smiled at the female student, Wu Rou. You don't even need to think to realize she underwent harsh training in the illusory spirit realm. The gap between her and Lu Xiangyang has widened further. Wu Rou nodded after a moment of thought. But Lu Xiangyang also trained in the illusory spirit realm before. How could he be left far behind? Mu Yiyu gently lifted her head and gazed toward the deepest part of the inner academy. After musing for a moment, she raised her jade-like arm and pointed forward. I heard from my brother that the students in Realm in Valley undergo training every 3 months. At that time, all second-grade elders work together to summon the illusory spirit space. Entering it is equivalent to us cultivating in the illusory spirit realm. However, the resources in the spirit space are much richer, so the progress is faster. She paused before continuing. The illusory spirit realm is just a concentrated section of the spirit space. Though Elder Wu is only a third-grade elder, he holds real power. It's understandable that Wu Shaoqi gained better cultivation resources by entering the realm. Wu Rou's eyes widened in shock. After a while, she pouted. How can Elder Wu use his power for personal gain? That's unfair to other students. Mu Yiyu laughed and shook her head. You can't say that. Firstly, although Wu Shaoqi got better resources, the place is far more dangerous. Others don't have the strength to stay there. Secondly, cultivating without proper resources requires strong willpower. Even if one enters the spirit space, if they lack will and determination, they won't improve. After hearing this evaluation, Wu Rou's mouth opened in surprise. It was the first time she had seen Mu Yiyu praise someone this way. Even when Lu Xiangyang had returned from the spirit realm, Mu Yiyu had only laughed lightly. Mu Yiyu pursed her lips slightly and looked into the distance. Her purple eyes sparkled with wisdom, as if she could see through mountains. Wu Shaoqi, I want to see how far you've come. And that Saint rank trial participant, he. Just like Big Brother, I'm afraid Big Brother will also show up then. Wu Shaoqi is actually that powerful. Inside the grand hall of the inner academy, Lu Xiangyang walked with his hands behind his back, visibly agitated. The scar on the corner of his eye seemed even more savage. Zhuang He stood quietly to the side, not daring to speak. Just yesterday, when Wu Shaoqi returned from the illusory spirit realm, Lu Xiangyang immediately went to pay a visit. However, he returned with a gloomy expression and hadn't slept all night, his anger intensifying. Elder Wu is abusing his power, Zhuang He growled. He let Wu Shaoqi enter the richest resource region in the realm. Big brother Lu, we should report this to the Dean's group. He was also angry. He had repeatedly spoken ill of Shaoyan to Wu Shaoqi, but she ignored him completely. From start to finish, she only said, I want to see whether he deserves for me to attack during the competition. If he doesn't, I gain nothing from defeating him now. Lu Xiangyang shook his head. Even if we report him, it won't matter. There's less than a month left. I need to quickly increase my strength, or the presidency of the punishment department will go to Wu Shaoqi. Remembering last night, he felt humiliated. Although it was just a test, and he hadn't gone all out, Wu Shaoqi had easily deflected his attack with a casual move. Zhuang He nodded. Becoming the leader of the punishment department would help greatly with future evaluations, particularly for entering the realm in Valley. This was Lu Xiangyang's real goal. I need to find time to visit the Spirit Pavilion, but I only have less than 100,000 Spirit Origin stones. That won't get me anything good. Lu Xiangyang rubbed his head. That amount might be enormous for an ordinary student, but for someone like him, it was still too little. Captain, there's someone outside the hall. He calls himself Zhu Tianhou and wishes to meet you. A member of the punishment department rushed in with the report. Zhu Tianhou. Lu Xiangyang frowned and looked toward Zhuang He, who was also confused. Let him in, Lu Xiangyang ordered coldly. Although he was angry, as the captain of the execution team, he still had to listen to students' requests. Not long after, a young man in a red robe strode into the hall. His face was calm, his eyebrows arched high, and his red hair burned like fire. Flames seemed to flicker in his eyes, and his presence radiated heat. Captain Lu. The young man cupped his fists and smiled calmly. Zhu Tianhou. Lu Xiangyang looked at him, frowning deeply. On the heavenly peak, after Zuna and Kailin left, Shaoyan calmed himself and began cultivating the secret techniques in the Yin scroll. With the fusion of Yin and Yang, the flame mantra burning spell flourished like a fish in water. He encountered no obstacles. Shaoyan used the secret arts from the damaged Yin scroll that Jade Fairy had given him to prepare for the Great Yin Space Technique competition. Chapter End. Chapter 297. UQ Juyan. On the incomplete Yin scroll given by Jade Fairy, there were 4 secret arts. They were ranked 8th as the Great Yin Space Technique, 6th as the Great Yin Spirit Arts, 5th as the Great Yin Phoenix Technique, and the most powerful one was the Great Yin Burial Technique, ranked 3rd. As a Sand-level cultivation technique, the Yin and Yang scroll could be said to be world-shaking. Even a single one of these arts would be enough to cause everyone to fight over it. Naturally, the secret arts recorded within it were incomparably domineering. Yin Juxuan had become a giant in the star-severing mountain range with just one Great Yin Spirit Arts. Although Shaoyan had only learned the Great Yin Space Technique, he had already gained much from it. The toughness and fierceness of the flame mantra burning spell combined with the softness of the cold dark water. The newly born power seemed to open a new world in front of Shaoyan, and countless insights followed. After successfully cultivating the Great Yin Space Technique, Shaoyan opened his eyes, and a trace of a smile flashed across them. The origin key on his fists danced, containing seemingly infinite power. The monic skill of the Great Yin Space Technique, Yin Space. It can actually affect the vibration of space. Shaoyan murmured to himself, then suddenly threw out both fists. The space in front of him trembled at a frequency visible to the naked eye. In the next moment, a continuous spatial vibration rumbled outward. The intense compression of the air caused the surrounding giant rocks to shatter. Taking a deep breath, Shaoyan looked at the destruction with satisfaction. Although it was only ranked 8th on the Yin scroll, it was still a unique skill. If used in battle, even a true Monic Emperor could be momentarily affected. When Yin Kang comprehended the Great Yin Spirit Arts, he walked its path and mastered many monic skills. Xiaoyan sat cross-legged again, his eyes gleaming thoughtfully. After a long silence, he sighed. One should not bite off more than one could chew. Although each secret art could allow one to comprehend many corresponding monic skills, it was too time-consuming. Moreover, although his cultivation technique had already merged yin and yang, his focus remained on the flame mantra burning spell. It was enough to learn only the core moves of each secret art. There was no need to exhaust himself mastering every monic skill. Although this skill isn't very destructive, it's still a supplementary monic skill. After some thought, Xiaoyan smiled gently and no longer hesitated. With the current level of his cultivation, having undergone the fusion of yin and yang, his most powerful monic skill, the third style of the White Tiger arts, the White Tiger spiritual spell, should now be usable up to 3 times. I heard from Zuna and Kai Lin that Mahiyu's strength has already reached the level of entering the realm in Valley. Back then, Yuan Shenmu's strength when facing Shentu wasn't something ordinary people could compare to. Xiaoyan returned to his senses and sank into thought. Even now, he didn't have full confidence in defeating the former Yuan Shenmu. As for Mahiyu, her true strength remained unknown. And then there's Wu Shaoqi. I wonder how strong she'll become if she fears her. Xiaoyan patted his head with a bitter smile. He suddenly realized that his true rivals were finally beginning to appear. There are less than 20 days left. Kai Lin's weapon is nearly complete. Let's see if it can be improved again in this time. Xiaoyan pursed his lips, and his expression grew resolute. He stopped thinking and returned to cultivation. 5 days later, Xiaoyan opened his eyes. From meditation, he stood and left Heavenly Peak to find Zuna and Kai Lin. He handed Kai Lin a weapon forged from the Xiaoao. It was a silver spear. The spearhead shimmered with spiritual light like a dragon or snake, its body etched with profound flame patterns. After the Xiaoao was merged with the star moon's immortal copper, its power was greatly enhanced. The moment Xiaoyan took out the spear, it seemed to come alive. It looked like a giant dragon ready to soar into the sky. A spiritual light flashed across Kai Lin's beautiful eyes. Her slender body moved, and the origin monic key swirled around her like a 9-colored python. She instantly grasped the long spear. It trembled briefly before settling obediently in her hand. A heavenly weapon. Kai Lin frowned slightly, feeling the heavy spear's power. When Xiaoyan nodded, a rare smile blossomed on her usually cold face. She had seen the heavenly weapon Xiaoyan gave Zuna and felt a hint of envy in her heart. Now, without realizing it, she had received one no less powerful. Hong Long. Zuna has the Jade Flawless Sword. With this heavenly weapon, you'll surely achieve great results in the inner courtyard competition. Xiaoyan smiled as he looked at the 2 girls. The heavenly weapon, shaped like a sword, had been named the Jade Flawless Sword by Zuna. Xiaoyan naturally had no objections. It's excellent. After testing the spear, Kai Lin nodded in satisfaction. A strange light flickered in her eyes. Holding it brought a mysterious sense of comfort, as if the weapon was connected to her very soul. Upon hearing Kai Lin's words, the Xiaoao spirit inside Xiaoyan couldn't help but roll its eyes and mutter something. Xiaoyan ignored it. Let's call it the 9-flame spear. Kai Lin's gaze softened as she looked at Xiaoyan. She gripped the spear tightly. She didn't know why, but this weapon gave her a deep sense of familiarity. Xiaoyan nodded, understanding the meaning behind the name. 9 symbolized the 9-colored heaven-swallowing python. Flame referred to himself, Xiaoyan. Through this name, Kai Lin had silently expressed her love for him. Zuna's eyes lit up as she understood instantly. Looking at the 9-flame spear in Kai Lin's hand, she couldn't resist anymore. Sister Lin, let me test your 9-flame spear. It's been many days, and aside from fighting husband Xiaoyan, I've never sparred with another heavenly weapon. Kai Lin laughed, her voice crisp as bells. She waved the spear and cut through the air. Sure. Seeing the 2 girls eager to duel, Xiaoyan quietly slipped away. The inner courtyard competition was approaching fast. Even atop Heavenly Peak, he could feel the growing tension in the air, leaving no room for complacency. As the day drew closer, many students training outside returned. From different places across the inner academy, powerful students emerged daily from the illusory spirit realm, their spirits high and filled with fighting intent. Even the usually quiet spirit pavilion welcomed more people by the day. Treasures useful for the competition were nearly all exchanged. The square teemed with people, each aiming for a higher rank in the competition. Time passed quickly in this tense atmosphere. The next day, before dawn, the inner academy's canyon was shrouded in a cool, misty fog. Suddenly, a melodious bronze bell rang out, spreading instantly throughout Yunlo Academy. Buzz! The sound echoed across all the mountain peaks, shattering clouds like a vast immortal melody. It carried a single message to everyone. The inner courtyard competition has begun. Chapter end. Chapter 298. Gather. The sound of the bell slowly rang out. It was like the call of an ancient spirit, echoing throughout the entire inner academy. With this endless echo, the clouds that covered the inner academy gradually dispersed. Golden sunlight shone down, scattering the mist and illuminating countless mountain peaks. Boom! At the same time, an enormous stone tablet slowly emerged in the middle of the inner academy. Densely packed words covered the tablet. If one looked closely, they would find the names of all the students of the inner academy. At the very top, 10 great golden names shone brightly, each radiating brilliance across the entire academy. The Soaring Dragon ranking has appeared. The last time it appeared was half a year ago. I wonder what kind of changes there will be this time. Hee. I don't care much about that. As long as you can enter the top 100, you'll get rewarded with spirit origin stones and various types of medicine pills. The moment the stone tablet appeared, the inner academy burst into excitement. Countless figures from every direction gathered toward the center, racing toward the rising sun. Let's go. Xiaoyan let out a long cry. After wrapping the blue flame ruler on his back layer by layer, he gazed through the clouds toward the distant stone tablet with a calm expression. At his side, Zuna smoothed out the wrinkles on Xiaoyan's black robe and looked at him with a smile. She nodded. Sister Kailin and father have already gone ahead, but husband Xiaoyan, you are able to remain so calm. Xiaoyan smiled when he heard that. Holding Zuna's hand, he whispered near her ear, to tell you the truth, I am a little nervous. But when I think about being with you all, I feel no fear at all. Feeling the warm breath Xiaoyan exhaled on her face, Zuna's pretty cheeks blushed slightly as she shyly nodded. Husband Xiaoyan, you can do it. Let them see the results of your hard work. Zuna said softly. Not just me. Everyone has to give the best. You've already grasped the essence of the Jade Flawless Sword. This time, you might just make it into the top 10 of the Soaring Dragon ranking. Xiaoyan smiled and gently pinched Zuna's cheek. Zuna pouted, but her eyes sparkled with happiness. Whether she made it or not, as long as she could be with husband Xiaoyan, everything would be fine. Let's go. Xiaoyan's eyes shone with determination. He smiled brightly, his black robe fluttering in the wind. He descended the mountain, with Zuna following closely behind. In a canyon, Bai Yongzhao suddenly opened his eyes. He moved his body, which hadn't stirred the entire night. The sound of bones cracking echoed for a long while. In a courtyard competition, Bai Yongzhao slowly stood up. His sunken eyes stared at the towering stone tablet in the distance. He muttered to himself, and then a surge of unwavering determination erupted from his eyes. Without another word, his figure vanished from the canyon, moving like a ghost, without a sound. Creak. Following the sound of a door opening, Lu Xiangyang exited a grand hall, looking spirited. Gazing at the stone tablet not far away, a strange light flashed in his eyes. Thinking back on that individual's words and the strength he displayed, Lu Xiangyang shook his head gloomily. Then a cold smile tugged at his lips as he muttered, forget it. Even if the rankings don't change, I'll drag Wu Shaoqi down. The position of president will be mine. With that, Lu Xiangyang calmly walked away, followed by several captains of the punishment department. These were all formidable individuals who had left the names on the stone tablet. Every one of them possessed extraordinary strength. Let's go. With a somersault, Wu Shaoqi jumped from a courtyard. Her eyes gleamed as she gazed at the distant stone monument. Her shoulder-length black hair was bound with a purple headband, giving her a heroic and commanding presence. Grandfather, I'm leaving first. She laughed loudly toward the courtyard. Her figure flashed, and like a streak of black lightning, she vanished instantly. What a fiery temper. Doesn't act like a lady at all. Who would want her in the future? Elder Wu walked out from the courtyard, watching Wu Shaoqi's distant figure. He shook his head with both helplessness and affection. Origin Monarch Ki surged within his body, and with a flap of his Origin Ki wings, he soared into the sky and vanished in an instant. Mahiyu slowly opened her eyes and let out a gentle breath. As her long sleeves fluttered, she descended from a huge boulder atop a mountain, elegant like Yun Qinghong. Let's go meet Wu Shaoqi and the Saint rank trial participant. Mahiyu smiled brightly, causing the surrounding exotic flowers and plants to pale in comparison. Big Brother might also appear. Hee. Meeting 2 Saint rank trial participants, how fun. Her figure swayed slightly, and she drifted far away. Behind her, several beautiful women in white dresses followed. Realm in Valley remained as tranquil as ever. Though the inner academy was abuzz with excitement for the competition, this place stayed calm and peaceful. Today is the inner courtyard competition. Everyone, let's go take a look. Suddenly, a loud voice broke the silence. Zhang Kai and Yuan Shenmu have already gone. Zhou Alliance, can you still resist? Just as the voice faded, a gentle female voice followed, like a spring breeze. Senior, please don't tease me. This is the biggest event in the past 6 months. Senior Mu's younger sister, Elder Wu's granddaughter, and even a Saint rank trial participant will all be there. I can't miss it. The youth who spoke earlier laughed heartily. You're right, Zhou Alliance, why not come with me? With a light laugh, a young man in white leaped from a mountain and spoke clearly. Wei Li. Zhou Alliance was momentarily stunned, then chuckled. Though you're a bit annoying, it's fine. Let's go. He leaped from the mountain peak, glanced at Wei Li, and smiled. Including Zhongli Jing, 5 people have already gone. As they left, a young woman in a purple dress appeared atop a mountain. Her figure was graceful, her cheeks slightly flushed, she was incredibly beautiful. You 3, coming or not? Su Qingwu smiled and looked toward Heavenly Peak, where the top 3 of Realm in Valley were located. Her gaze sparkled as she spoke. As they chatted, a young man in white soared into the sky from a nearby peak. He had sword-shaped eyebrows and bright eyes like stars. His black hair flowed like a waterfall. He was incredibly elegant. He glanced at those below, then looked at Lin Dao atop another mountain. Without saying a word, he flapped his wings and disappeared into the outside world. Mahuyang, he really has become a monarch emperor. Su Qingwu softly sighed as she watched him leave. Even she, once called the Heavenly Lady by her clan, felt overshadowed by Mahuyang's talent. Swoosh! Before the sigh faded, a long spear surged up from a mountain like a dragon. Atop the spear stood a cold-faced youth rushing toward the outside world. Hey! Lin Dao has gone too. Su Qingwu looked slightly surprised, then smiled faintly. With a wave of her sleeve, she vanished as well. She hadn't expected this. So interesting. I'll go take a look too. Saint rank trial participant, Ran Hong, aren't you going? Just as Su Qingwu left, a lazy voice rang out, full of drowsiness. We'll all enter Realm in Valley sooner or later. There's no rush to see them now. A calm voice responded. That's true. Xiao Yi sat cross-legged on a limestone rock, smiling faintly. A light flickered in his eyes as he closed them once again. Chapter end. At the center of the inner academy was an extremely spacious square. It was dozens of times larger than the place where the technique hall was located. Looking down from the top of the mountain, this square was extremely eye-catching. Beside the square was an incomparably enormous stone tablet. The names of each student flickered on the stone tablet. There were nearly 1,000 students in the inner academy, and the names were recorded on the stone tablet. Only 100 people. The name of the current expert was on the front of the stone tablet, and on the back was the famous expert from the inner academy in the past. Those who were recorded on it were all people with outstanding strength. At this moment, nearly 1,000 people had already gathered here. It just so happened to be the grandest competition within the inner academy. Practically all the students within the academy had come because of their reputation. Being able to stand out in this kind of competition meant that their reputation within the inner academy had risen. Under the organizational arrangements of the many elders, all the students who wanted to watch the competition were already in position in the surrounding stadium. Many competitors were seated on stone stools below the stone tablet, preparing to register for the competition. When Xiaoyan and Zuna arrived at this place, there was already a sea of people. The noise of nearly 1,000 people was like thunder that resounded through the clouds. From afar, Xiaoyan had heard of it. He shook his head. Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes and looked at the back of the stone tablet. With a glance, he saw a familiar name. At the top of the stone tablet, there was a golden name shining on Yu. The light covered the names engraved on the stone tablet. Mahuyang. Looking at this name, Xiaoyan silently nodded his head. These days, he had heard many legends about Mahuyang. It was reasonable for such a person's name to be engraved on the stone monument. Its father and the others. While Xiaoyan was browsing the names on the stone tablet, Zuna's voice suddenly sounded. Xiaoyan came back to his senses and looked in the direction Zuna pointed. He saw Guyuan, Zhu Kun, and Kai Lin walking over. When he saw Guyuan and Kai Lin, Xiaoyan also revealed a smile. Ever since he met them in Capital of Chaos, they hadn't seen each other for nearly a month, even though they had asked Zuna to pass a message to Xiaoyan that they wanted to rely on their own strength during the competition. However, they did not help the two of them at all. Xiaoyan also had a vague feeling in his heart. He felt a little guilty. We will give you 2 names. There are nearly 200 people participating in this competition. Their overall strength is much stronger than half a year ago. Guyuan came in front of Xiaoyan, crossed his arms and said in a deep voice. Zhu Kun nodded his head disapprovingly. Although many people's strength had improved tremendously, they had not slacked off for the past few days. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious in the end. Xiaoyan nodded his head when he heard this. He raised his head and looked around. There were already many competitors in the surroundings. Everyone was in high spirits. They were all rubbing their fists and preparing to go all out. You are Xiaoyan, that Saint rank trial participant. While everyone was talking, in the next moment, Xiaoyan only felt a fragrant wind blowing past him. A tall woman was standing beside them with a smile on her face. Her astonishing speed caused Xiaoyan to frown slightly. The woman had a sweet appearance, but there was a faint trace of manliness between her brows. Her jet-black long hair was tucked behind her head. She wore a black leather skirt and leather boots, looking extremely lively. Wu Shaoqi. Seeing the sudden appearance of the woman, Zuna blinked her big eyes and suddenly said in a low voice. When she heard Wu Shaoqi's name, the few of them were clearly stunned. They had heard this name many times and did not expect to meet this fellow before the competition even began. When Xiaoyan heard this, his sharp eyes looked at Wu Shaoqi, but the latter acted as if she did not see it. Her bright eyes revealed a trace of a smile as she looked at Zuna and Kai Lin with a smile and said in a low voice. He, you two are great beauties. When I entered the inner courtyard back then, I secretly saw you two. As she spoke, Wu Shaoqi looked at Xiaoyan and sized him up. After which, she nodded her head in satisfaction. Not bad. At least you have some of the aura of Saint rank trial participant. You have to fight well. I don't want to fight Mahiyu again. Puffing her mouth, Wu Shaoqi laughed mischievously. Taking advantage of the fact that the people not far away did not notice this, her figure flashed and rushed into the distance like a bolt of lightning. It is indeed very strong. Although Xiaoyan had not spoken a word to Wu Shaoqi since the beginning, he could still sense the strength contained within Wu Shaoqi's body. That kind of strength was more than a little stronger compared to Bai Yongzhao back then. Zuna and Kai Lin looked at each other when they heard Xiaoyan's evaluation. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. When Xiaoyan had just successfully merged the yin and yang, he was confident that he could defeat Bai Yongzhao. After these few days of practice, he was confident that he could defeat Bai Yongzhao. His strength had risen to the next level, but he still had such a high evaluation of Wu Shaoqi. This guy who was ranked second in the Soaring Dragon ranking could not be underestimated. With the gap in Wu Shaoqi's strength, Xiaoyan's originally excited mood quickly calmed down. The opponent was also very strong. If he didn't maintain absolute observation and caution, even he himself might be defeated in an easy task. Guyuan and I's goal is to enter the top 20. We still have a lot of time. Zuna and Kai Lin, on the other hand, want to catch up to Xiaoyan. This time, I'm afraid that they will at least enter the top 10. Zhu Kun laughed heartily. He lowered his voice and said. Zuna and Kai Lin nodded silently when they heard this. With Xiaoyan's strength, if nothing unexpected happened, he would definitely enter the realm in Valley. The training resources in the realm in Valley were more than 10 times better than those in the inner academy. If he didn't want to drag Xiaoyan down, the competition this time would be. In this way, no matter what, he would have to enter the top 10 of the Soaring Dragon ranking. Only with rich resources could they have the ability to catch up to Xiaoyan. Seeing the actions of the two girls, Xiaoyan pursed his lips. He silently held the hands of the two girls. These days, he had been cultivating. The two girls hadn't relaxed at all, for the sake of what they were thinking. Xiaoyan was about to speak when a heavy voice suddenly sounded. When he heard this familiar voice, Xiaoyan frowned and sneered. He turned around and hugged the two girls' waist. He looked at Bai Yongzhao and said, "What's wrong? Is something the matter?" Bai Yongzhao looked at Xiaoyan, who was holding the two girls' hands. A trace of anger flashed across his sunken eyes. After that, he coldly harumphed and said, "I'm looking forward to your battle at the same time. If you still have the same strength as before and haven't made any progress, I advise you to go back as soon as possible." After saying that, Bai Yongzhao looked at Guyuan and Zhu Kun again. He could sense that there was something different about the two of them from the others. He couldn't help but frown. He took a step forward and stopped Bai Yongzhao from looking at him. Xiaoyan smiled casually and shook his head. "You don't need to worry about that. If you can't even defeat me, don't even think about entering Realm in Valley." Bai Yongzhao did not get angry when he heard that. He just smiled. "That's right. However, it's still far from enough to defeat me in the Realm in Valley." Shaking his head, Bai Yongzhao didn't say anything else. He walked past Xiaoyan and walked towards the competition stage below the stone monument. Looking at Bai Yongzhao's back, Xiaoyan suddenly had a thought. He raised his head and saw a young man wearing a fiery red robe standing by the stone monument. He was just standing there casually. He was like a king of fire. The blazing origin monarch ki on his body kept surging and burning. Zhu Tianhou. After a moment of trance, Xiaoyan pursed his lips and muttered to himself in his heart. Chapter 8. Under the arrangement of many elders, the 200+ participants were clearly divided into groups and carried out according to the elimination system. As the top 10 experts of the Soaring Dragon ranking, they would naturally carry out the final competition. The big competition this time will be held in 3 arenas at the same time. According to the number of the arenas, you can go to the corresponding arenas. On the high platform, Elder Wu's face was solemn, and his voice was like thunder. Every match has a time limit of 15 minutes. After the time limit is up, if the winner and loser are not decided, the elders on the elders' seats will naturally make an objective evaluation. Of course, in order to increase the intensity of the competition, the top 50 students of the Soaring Dragon ranking will be competing in the main arena. Hearing Elder Wu's words, everyone in the viewing platform was stunned for a moment, then they were overjoyed. The top 50 students of the Soaring Dragon ranking were all extremely strong. To be able to see their final battle on the main arena, this trip was not in vain. When the contestants heard what Elder Wu said, they were not moved. Each of their faces had a high-spirited temperament, and they were all rubbing their fists, preparing to go all out. Xiaoyan, Zuna and a few others sat on the stone bench and raised their heads to look at the high platform. Dozens of elders sat on the high platform and looked down with interest. Among these elders, there were some unfamiliar faces. However, judging from the attitude of Elder Wu towards them, it was not difficult to see the strength of these elders. Buzz! Along with an ear-splitting bell chime, Elder Wu waved his hand and said with a long and drawn-out voice. In a courtyard competition, begin now. As the voice faded, the entire high platform instantly boiled up. The shouts shook the heavens and earth. On the contestants' seats, following the name of a few elders, 6 contestants stood up from the crowd and leapt towards their respective competition grounds. Xiaoyan looked at the arena. There were 2 young men on the arena. As soon as they stepped onto the arena, they unleashed the true strength. Both of them were at the 7th Monarch Spirit, and their strength was almost the same. The next match will be Uncle Zhu. He retracted his gaze. Xiaoyan looked at Zhu Kun, who was standing at the side. The latter nodded his head and his face was filled with excitement. Following the judge's order, the participants of the 3 arenas began to fight intensely. For a moment, the sound of Origin Key exploding could be heard without an end, causing the atmosphere of the arena to reach its climax. Only the battles on the home ground can be watched. The other 2 arenas are really boring. On the high platform, in an inconspicuous corner, Yuan Shenmu faintly looked at the battles on the 3 battlefields and shook his head. Zan Kai, who was standing at the side, did not say a word. His eyes jumped over the arena and looked at the competition seats. There was a young man wearing a red robe sitting there quietly. As if he had noticed Zan Kai's gaze, the young man raised his head and nodded at Zan Kai. That's the guy you raised. Yuan Shenmu leaned back on the chair and asked lazily. A sharp light flashed in Zan Kai's eyes. He nodded and said slowly, that's right. Senior Yuan, can you tell anything? Hearing Zan Kai's words, Yuan Shenmu shifted his gaze back to Zhu Tianhou. After a long time, he finally spoke with some astonishment. What's going on with this guy? Zan Kai revealed a smile when he heard this. He said in a deep voice, his constitution is very special. Yuan Shenmu frowned and looked at Zhu Tianhou with more confusion. He could feel a burning sensation from this guy, like a raging fire. What kind of physique? Yuan Shenmu looked at Zan Kai. His expression was not as lazy as before. Sacred fire body. Zan Kai's lips moved and he said in a deep voice. Yuan Shenmu frowned. He was just about to speak when Zan Kai slowly spoke. The great world. There were many geniuses with mutated physiques. All of them had mutated physiques without exception. At the beginning, they were all extremely weak. After pausing for a moment, Zan Kai continued, Mahu Yang's younger sister, Mahiyu. She was also a person with mutated physiques. Her eyes. It was called the purple illusion eye in ancient books, and it had the effect of hallucinating. The sacred fire body, on the other hand, used its body to store fire. He was a flame, and the flame was him. The growing sacred spirit fire body, being called the king of fire isn't an exaggeration at all. After listening to Zan Kai's description, Yuan Shenmu looked at Zhu Tianhou in surprise. Zhu Tianhou lowered his head and didn't say anything. He didn't care about the intense competition. Emperor of Fire, what a domineering title. Yuan Shenmu smiled as if he had thought of something. He looked at Zan Kai and said in a low voice, you want to use him to resist Mahiyu. Zan Kai shook his head and said, this is not the whole reason. Although they are both mutated, Mahiyu was already familiar with the illusion purple pupil. This point, Zhu Tianhou is still far from being a match for him, but she could still get the 2nd place. At that time, he would have the qualifications to enter the core of the Spirit Pavilion. There was an introduction to the sacred spirit fire body, and with his talent, that's enough for me to master the sacred spirit fire body. After listening to Zhang Kai's introduction, Yuan Shenmu silently nodded his head and pondered for a moment before saying, "So, that Saint rank trial participant, what is your evaluation?" "He is someone who can kill Li Yin." "Saint rank trial participant. He is very strong, but compared to Zhu Tianhou, there is still a gap. The sacred spirit fire body is known as the King of Fire, and it can control 10,000 flames. A few days ago, the Saint rank trial participant fought with Bai Yongzhao. Even if he can defeat Bai Yongzhao now, there is no way he can defeat Zhu Tianhou." Hearing Zhang Kai's assertion, Yuan Tianmu smiled. "You are really confident." After a pause, Yuan Shenmu's eyes flashed. He looked at the two figures not far away, Zhou Alliance and Wei Li. Zhang Kai followed Yuan Shenmu's gaze and saw two young men sitting in the crowd. They were also looking at them. Although they were surrounded by the crowd, their temperament was like the stars in the night sky, attracting people's attention. There has been something wrong with these two guys. Now that they have come out, it seems like they're quite attentive. Yuan Shenmu shook his head and said with a smile, "What's so strange about that?" This time, not only Mahiyu and Wu Shaoqi, but also Saint rank trial participant and Zhu Tianhou. Now that you mention it, I can't help but watch their battle. As the two of them were talking, the 3 matches in the arena had all ended. The intensity of the battle had also won the applause of the entire arena. The loser was dejected, and the winner was waiting for the next match. Next match, the main arena, Zhu Kun, Zhuang He. Elder Wu's voice slowly rang out, causing Zhu Kun, who had just stood up, to be slightly startled. Immediately, he looked at Zhuang He, who was also standing up not far away from Shaoyan. The latter recovered his senses and looked at Zhu Kun with a sneer on his face. It seemed like this match was a sure win. Zhu Kun's strength was already much weaker than his. Furthermore, he had gotten the help of that fellow. Thinking of this, Zhuang He turned his head and looked at the young man who was standing not far away. The young man lowered his head and said nothing. Zhuang He, Shaoyan and the others couldn't help but look at Zhuang He after hearing what he said. This guy had a conflict with them from the beginning. Now that he was facing Zhu Kun, they guessed that he wouldn't show any mercy. "Uncle, be careful." Zuna looked at Zhu Kun and said in a low voice. Zhu Kun smiled when he heard her. He nodded and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. This month, I am not idle either." Guyuan, who was standing beside him, wasn't really worried. Clearly, he was quite confident in Zhu Kun's strength. Watching the arrival of Zhu Kun and Zhuang He, Shaoyan also perked up. This match should be more interesting than the previous one. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.